All right, so we're going to set up our IKFK arm, okay? And we're going to be constraining our controls in a manner that will follow the orientation of our joints. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set up our clavicle. So we're going to draw a new shape here. So I'm going to go over to my curves and my EP curve tool right here. And I'm going to come over to my tool settings, which have popped up over here. Ooh, let me just squish that over so I can nest that in the right place. Okay, so I want linear so that that'll make nice straight lines. And what I'm going to do is holding my X key, so I snap to the grid, I am just going to come up right here. And I'm going to go diagonal up here, and then I'm going to make just a little square that comes all the way around like that. So now we have this great little control right here. Okay, and this is maybe a little too big, but now that we have that, we can just go here, and if we hold down R and our left mouse pad, we can actually change this so that we scale from the center of the object, which is right here. So now we can scale this down to a little more manageable of a size, something like that. Okay, we're actually going to be using this control a couple of times. We're going to use it for our clavicles, and we're going to use it for our finger joints when we get to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate one of these controls so that I have it. So that's just our spare one that I'm going to work from. And then I'm going to go back to my regular curve, and I'm going to call this my left clavicle control. And then, just like we've done, I'm going to group it, Control G to itself, and I'm going to name this the left clavicle underscore C underscore GRP for group. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to, just like we did with our other controls, I want to move our group here up to this joint. But instead of snapping it, I'm going to use a different technique so that I can get the orientation that we have on our clavicle. You can see it's also pointing down the bone. So, and our control right now is not facing the exact same way. We want to get the same orientation and rotation. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our clavicle, and then we're going to come over in our outliner, and we're going to hit Control and click on the left clavicle control group. And then we're going to come up to our constrain option underneath our rigging menu set. And we're going to go to our parent constraint. Now we want to go over to the parent constraint option box. So we will open that up. And we're going to turn maintain offset off. We're going to uncheck that. What it's going to do is, since that is off, it is going to snap that group all the way up to the control, and it's going to change its translations, and it's going to change its rotations to match the parent. Whatever it is that is constraining the other object, it's going to change everything to be one and the same. So we're going to hit apply, and you can see if I close this and I look at that, you'll notice, look, I have all these values. So it snapped it in my translate, just like these control groups were, but it's added a rotation as well. Now that we have done that, obviously we have our joint controlling our control, and we don't want that. So we're going to delete that parent constraint, just like that. Okay, so with our parent constraint deleted, okay, we can go ahead and make some adjustments. And now we're free to constrain the control or constrain the clavicle to the control and not the control to the clavicle, which is what we were before. So first thing I want to just move this. So I'm going to hit F8 and I want to put this in a place that is maybe a little bit better. So with everything controlled, I'm going to hit E and holding my E key down and holding my left key down, it will bring up my marking menu. And again, I want to rotate from the object. And I'm going to make sure that my discrete rotate is on. So just again, a reminder, those tools that I'm pulling up on the marking menu are still under the tools settings, right? Our step snap is set to 15. That's all that we turned on with the discrete rotate. And then, our position and orientation is the center pivot at the object. That's what we set through the marking menu. So with that on, I'm going to make sure that I have my gimbal on so that I'm rotating it the right way. And I'm just going to bring this up, to about like that. And then it is really big. So I am going to scale that down. And maybe I will rotate that up a little bit more and scale that down a little bit more. Okay, and I'll hit F8 to get out of component mode and back to object mode. And now I have my left clavicle and I can take that control and I can shift select the clavicle. And now I can do another parent constraint. So under my rigging shelf or under constraint, I'm just going to click the parent constraint button. I don't have to worry if it's constrained with maintain offset on or off because I already have that. They're already the same because that's what our group did here. So just be very mindful that when you're doing these constraints, you're doing things through the group when you're snapping that control up, okay? It's really easy to grab the actual control and constrain it to the clavicle. And then we have all these values on our actual control when we're trying to keep them all clean. And remember that parent group is there to keep all of the values on there so we don't have to remember them. The animator is only going to be using the controls themselves. They're just going to be clicking on these and not on the groups. So this is what they animate on, and the groups are what we do to manipulate those controls so that we can get functionality and values stored away in those groups. So now we have this constraint. We can see we can rotate it just like we normally would, and that is all great. So we're going to take that left clavicle group, and its parent is going to be this upper back. So we're going to hit Shift for that control. We're going to have our group selected. We're going to Shift select our upper back, and we're going to parent it by hitting P. And that's going to parent it, and now it's going to be a part of that hierarchy. There we go. It is rotating how we want it. Okay, now our clavicle is set up. Now we have our work cut out for us for setting up everything down the line. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our root or our skin joints here. So we're going to select our shoulder joint and we're going to duplicate it twice. So Control D, Control D. And if we come over in our outliner, we can hit F and it will frame it. So here we have our left shoulder joint 1, left shoulder joint 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull these out of this hierarchy. So we're going to go Shift P. And there we go. So these are now out. And we need to organize these, okay? This is where naming conventions are really important because clicking in here, they're totally overlapped and we can't find them easily by just clicking where they are because there's three things that live in the same space. So first thing we want to do is we're going to rename this. So if we go up, we can, first off, we're going to get rid of that one. And we're going to go up to modify. And we are going to go to, oh, this is modify. We want to go to the search and replace names. And what we're going to do is we're going to search for an underscore JNT. So that is what we've appended to the end of all of our joints. And we're going to change it to IK, or we're going to go underscore IK underscore JNT, right? And we're going to apply it to the hierarchy. We're going to click apply. And now we have our IK chain. Perfect. This is exactly what we want. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with our left shoulder joint 2. We're going to get rid of the 2, and in this time we're going to change IK for FK, and this is going to be our FK chain. Okay, and we're going to hit apply. And now we have our FK chain. Okay, a couple more things. These, if I move this up, came with a lot of extra stuff. We don't actually need all of the finger joints in here on either of those chains. In fact, we don't even need our wrist or our forearm twist joint that we created on these. So in fact, for the IK, we definitely don't. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into each of these. We have all of our finger joints, and we're just going to delete them. And we're going to do the same thing with the FK joints. We'll come down and select all those finger joints. We're going to delete it. We're going to keep the left wrist end, FK and IK. Well, we'll keep it on the IK. We don't actually need it on the FK. So you can delete it if you want or leave it if you want. It won't make a difference. But we're going to keep it on the IK one. Now, we've got those cleaned up. We need to get rid of that forearm joint. So we're going to select the forearm FK joint. And we're going to go up and we're going to go to skeleton. And we are going to remove this joint. So we click that. That has removed it. But it hasn't messed with anything else. It's the same thing as unparenting it, parenting the child joint to it, and then reparenting it to that hierarchy. So if I pull this up, the joint now looks like this. Same orientations, positions, rotations as our skinned joints. And that is 100% what we want. Okay. So we're going to have that. And then we're going to do the same thing with our IK. We're going to select that forearm IK, that twist joint right in the middle. And we're going to go up to skeleton and remove joints and click that. So now, if I pull those up, you'll notice they both are identical. They don't have this other joint here. So with our IK, we need that because the IKs that we're setting up, they only use 3 joints. And it will get this extra funky bend when we're trying to do an IK from the shoulder to the wrist. So we're going to not deal with that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set up the FK joints and then the IK joints. And then we're going to use these joints and we're going to constrain our skin joints to both of these joints and get those hooked up. So the first thing that we need is we're going to need controls for our FK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off visibility on my IK, and I'm going to turn off the visibility on my skinned joints. here in the hierarchy. And that way, all I'm looking at is my FK joints right here. So if I click on these, you'll notice it's FK joint, down the line. So we need a bunch of controls. We're just going to use some curves. We're going to use a circle curve. Okay, so there's that. It's a little small, so I'll hit F8, select the control points, and hit R, and just kind of scale that up. And that's probably pretty good. And then I need 1, 2, 3 of these curves. All right, so we're going to duplicate this 3 times or twice. There we go. We're going to name the first one our left underscore shoulder underscore control. Our next one is going to be the left underscore elbow underscore C for control. And then our last one is going to be left underscore wrist underscore control. Okay, each of these need a group, so we'll select the left shoulder. I'm actually going to just copy the name really quick, and then I'm going to group it. And then I'm going to change the name of the group. I'm just going to paste what I had, and then just add an underscore GRP for my group. And then I'll do the same thing with my left elbow. Control G to group it. Rename it left elbow underscore C underscore GRP. And then finally, we're going to do the same thing with our left wrist. We're going to go, let me copy that name, save myself some time. Control C and Control G to group it. So GRP. Okay, we have these. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take these groups and we want the same orientation as our joints. So we are going to select the joint and of the shoulder, and we're going to control select the group of our left shoulder control. And now we can go to rigging. These should remember our last settings. So if I click it, yep, it's going to snap it. We'd set it with the maintain offset to 0 to not be on. So it snaps it automatically. And then I'm just going to go in and I'm going to delete that constraint because I don't need it. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit F8. I'm going to select all those control points. And with my discrete rotate on, I'm just going to rotate this 90 degrees like that. And maybe that's a little too big. So I'll scale it down a tiny bit. And maybe I'll even move it up a little. Okay, we can move the control points again. Doesn't affect the actual transform, which is great. So again, we should be left with our control having 0 values on it, right? That is what we want. So now with that, we can select our actual control. We can shift select our shoulder, and we can do another parent constraint. This way, the control is controlling the joint. All right, and that is set up. So now we have that. And we can see we are rotating. Our arm isn't moving because right now we don't have any influence on the skinned joints. And so this is fine. This is exactly how it should be. I'm going to take my now next group. Okay, so I'm going to select my elbow. And I'm going to come into my outliner and control select my left elbow control group. So again, I want the group. And I'm going to constrain it. I'm just going to use the parent constraint. And it's going to snap it up in place, which is great. And then my outliner, we can see it's created that parent constraint node, which we don't need anymore. It did its job, right? It snapped it up to the position, so we're going to delete that constraint group. We're going to select our control. We're going to go F8 again, and we're going to rotate this 90 degrees, maybe scale it down a little bit, and there we go. F8, and that is set. It's a good size. Now we got to constrain that joint, so we're going to select our control and shift select the joint, and we're going to create another parent constraint that we're going to keep around. Okay, now we need to take the group of our left elbow and we're going to parent it to our left shoulder control. So if I come in my outliner and select the group and control select the control, not the group, we want the control, and we're going to hit P to parent it. So now we're getting that nice daisy chain of group, control, group, control, group, control. That's what we like. All the way down. All right, so we've got this. Next thing, we're going to set up our wrist. So we're going to, again, we've got the group. We need to select our wrist joint, which is right here. And we're going to control select our left wrist control group. And we're going to keep maintain offset off. And which again, just as another reminder, this is unchecked. We hit apply and it snaps it right there and creates another parent constraint that we're going to delete because we don't want it anymore. We're going to go select our control, hit F8 and select all the control points and rotate that 90 degrees and scale it down. So now we have our wonderful controls. They are oriented to our joints 100%. They match them exactly. And that is 100% what we want. Now we're going to select our control, shift select the wrist FK joint, and do another parent constraint that we're going to keep around. And now we just need to parent that in the group. So we will take our left wrist control group, control select our left elbow control, and parent it. So now we have all of these set up. The last thing is that this should be following our clavicle. So we're going to select the whole string here, the left shoulder control group, and shift select our left clavicle control and hit P to parent that. Perfect. All right, we've got a whole FK is set up. So now we want to set up our IK, and we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to turn off my FK joints from the left shoulder FK, turn that off, and I'm going to turn on my IK so that I can work with that. Okay, now we need another control that's going to control the whole length of the arm for the IK. So this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to curves. We're going to create another circle curve. But this time, I'm going to come to my history here on the Make Nerve Circle 10. Yours could be a different number. It doesn't matter. We're going to change it anyways. So I'm going to change this from cubic to linear. It's going to give me this wonderful octagon shape. But I'm going to go for a square. So I'm just going to put in 4 sections. That's going to give me this wonderful square. I just want it to be different from my FK control so I can easily distinguish, like, oh, this is my IK control. Oh, the round ones are my FK. Whatever shape it is, you know, you could still do it round, and that's totally fine. It's just an organization and preference thing. And this is kind of what I prefer. So we'll make this a little bit bigger. Scale that up on our control points. And we're going to name this our left underscore arm. It's going to control our whole arm control. And then we're going to group it, Control G, and we'll name it our left underscore arm underscore control underscore GRP for group. We're going to have that set. So we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to have it be constrained and match our wrist that we have. So we're going to come up here. We're going to select our IK wrist right there, and then we're going to come into our outliner so we can select the group, hit Control, select the group, and we're going to go back to our rigging tab, and we're going to do a wonderful parent constraint. So that maintain offset is still set to 0, so it snaps it up. It created that parent constraint node, and we're going to delete that. And then we're going to take our control, hit F8 to go to component mode, grab those control points, rotate it up, and then maybe I'll make this one a touch bigger like that, so it is totally different. Okay. Now, we have this set, but we need an IK for this arm. So we're going to come back up to our IK tool. And if we go to our tool settings, it should be set to rotate plane solver. And we're just going to go in, we're going to select our shoulder joint, and then down to our wrist joint. Oops, that's not what we want. Sorry, I didn't actually select that. Select that, there we go, and that. Okay, and this creates this IK. We're going to rename this our left IK underscore arm. Okay, and that's what it is. It is just that. We're going to create one more. That's going to go from our wrist to the wrist end. And that's going to lock in our rotation for our wrist. So we're going to select this, go here to here, enter, and we're going to change that to left IK wrist. All right. So we have both of these, and that is great. And now we're going to take both of these, and we are going to parent it to our IK control. So we're going to hit Shift, that, and hit P, and that parents it. So we can see we have it right there. And now we have our FK all, or our IK all set up as well. Wonderful. Okay, so we have the FK and the IK. We can see if I rotate my FK and I were to turn that back on, you'll see there's that. And then my IK, I can move over here and I can go back to my left shoulder and turn that on. And you'll notice right here, I've got my skin joint, my IK joints, and my FK joints, and they're all being controlled separately. Okay, so we've got the basics for our IK and FK set up. Now we're going to have these all control each other. So I'll just undo that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set up constraints between all of our joints. So we are going to select our left shoulder FK, our left shoulder IK, and our left shoulder skinned joint right here. So I'm just holding Control to click. So you've got to first select the FK, then the IK. The last thing you should select is the thing you want controlled, which is our shoulder. And we are just going to do a parent constraint, just like that. Okay, and that creates this parent constraint node, and you can see right now it's being influenced by both of them. And we're going to do the same thing with our elbow. So I'll select my FK elbow, my IK elbow, and then my skinned elbow, and do another parent constraint. And then I'm going to do it one last time with my left wrist, FK, IK, and my left wrist right there. Okay. And we're going to create another constraint. So now, if I were to move this, okay, we can see that my skin joint, which I still have turned off, well, let me turn that back on so you can see it, and my FK joint is on. So now you can see this is perfectly a happy medium, 50% on both of those. We need to control that switch. We want these to be influencing only one at a time and not both the same time. So just rotate that back up. Okay. So we're going to get into our wonderful node editor for this. So I am going to pause right now and pick back up in the next video.